I'm 22 years old, a recent college grad, and I've lived in the same house for as long as I can remember. It's a 3-story home in a quiet suburban neighborhood, the kind with tree-lined streets, manicured lawns, and families who have known each other for generations. Nothing about it has ever felt unsafe. But after everything that's happened over the last decade, I'm certain that my family has been watched, and I don't think it will ever stop. My bedroom is on the 2nd floor, with a large window that faces the street. Directly above my room, on the 3rd floor, is my dad's home office, which has the only other window that faces the street. This small detail is more important than you might think. The first strange incident happened when I was still in middle school. It was years before I understood the full story. One morning, I came downstairs for breakfast and heard my parents talking in hushed, anxious tones in the kitchen. My dad sounded shaken, frustrated. I could tell something was wrong, but when I asked what they were talking about, they just brushed me off, saying it was adult stuff. It wasn't until a few days later that my older brother, who'd overheard more, told me what had really happened. My dad is a lawyer and baked tin. He often worked late into the night. On that particular night, he was in his 3rd floor office, well past midnight, when he noticed something odd. A dark Chevy Suburban was creeping down our street. And when I say creeping, I mean it was moving at a snail's pace, like the driver had just taken their foot off the pedals and was letting it roll. He tried to ignore it, assuming it was just someone looking for a late-night parking spot. But then, the same Suburban passed again, this time coming from the opposite direction. A few moments later, it pulled over and parked directly across the street from our house. My dad stood at his window and watched it. The engine was off. No lights came on inside. No one got out. The car just sat there, a dark, silent shape in the night. He watched for what felt like an eternity. Eventually, he tried to get back to work, but he kept glancing out the window. Nothing changed. The Suburban remained. Around 2 in the morning, exhausted, he fell asleep at his desk. When he woke up at 5:30, his neck stiff, the first thing he did was look outside. The car was still there. Same spot, same position. It didn't finally drive away until the first hints of sunrise began to streak the sky. This wasn't the first time he'd seen cars moving slowly at night, but it was the most unsettling. Still, as the years went by and nothing else happened, we all just tried to forget about it. We chalked it up to paranoia. Maybe it was just someone sleeping in their car to avoid a long commute. Or maybe it was a private investigator on a completely unrelated case. Life just went on. Then, when I was 15, it happened to me. I was in my room late one night, headphones on, trying to make some music. I was staring blankly out my window, lost in thought, when I saw a flicker of light from the corner of my eye. It wasn't a street light or a car's headlights. It was different. I took my headphones off and focused on the street. That's when I saw them. There were at least 3 cars, all moving slowly, just like the Suburban my dad had described years ago, and there were people inside them, shining powerful flashlights out of their windows. I watched, frozen in a strange mix of confusion and fear, as one of the beams swept across my neighbor's house. Then it moved toward mine. My heart hammered against my ribs. I ducked below the windowsill just as the light hit my window, splashing a bright rectangle across my ceiling. My breath caught in my throat. Whoever was holding that flashlight was standing right outside, directly below my room. I stayed crouched on the floor, listening. After what felt like forever, the light was gone. I cautiously peeked over the windowsill. The cars were already at the end of the street, turning the corner and disappearing into the darkness. I didn't sleep a wink that night. The next morning, when I told my parents what happened, they finally took it seriously. The slow-moving cars, the flashlight sit, was too much to be a coincidence. That week, they installed a full security system. We got motion-activated floodlights, security cameras covering every angle of the house, and a Ring doorbell. We all assumed it was a crew of burglars scouting the neighborhood, and we hoped the new security measures would be enough to deter them. For a few years, it seemed to work. Life returned to normal. Then, something happened that made all our previous theories feel naive. We hired a contractor to do some landscaping in the backyard. While he was clearing out some overgrown bushes near the property line, he found something. Tucked deep inside the foliage, almost completely hidden, was a tiny camera. It was battery-powered and incredibly small. When we took it to the police, They told us it had no SIM card and no internal memory storage. The only way it could have worked was by live streaming its feed to a receiver somewhere nearby. There was no way to know how long it had been there, who put it there, or what they had seen. The police filed a report, but with no leads, the case went cold almost immediately. Shortly after we found the camera, our next-door neighbors, who had lived in their house for 20 years, suddenly moved out. The new owners were a young couple with no kids, which seemed a little odd for such a large family home. I didn't think much of it at first, but then I started noticing things. Late at night, I'd see them standing in their top-floor window, the one that overlooked our backyard. They weren't just sitting or glancing out. They were standing perfectly still, just watching. One evening, I was walking my dog and happened to glance through their kitchen window, which was still uncovered. They were sitting at their dining table, but they weren't alone. There was a third person with them. A man. He was bold, muscular, with thick, dark eyebrows that gave him an intimidating look. He was unforgettable. The instant I made eye contact with the woman at the table, she reached over and swiftly closed the curtains. She didn't even look outside to see who was there. It was like she knew she was being watched. More years passed. I went off to college, and the unsettling feelings faded into the background of my busy life. Then, last week, it all came rushing back. My family took a vacation to Paris. We were trying to unwind, to finally get away from it all. One night, we were sitting in a quiet little bar, enjoying a drink. I happened to glance across the room and saw a man sitting alone in a booth. There was something about him that felt wrong, disturbingly familiar. My blood ran cold as I realized who it was. The bold, muscular man. The man from my neighbor's house. Our eyes locked for just a second. A flicker of recognition or something colder passed across his face. Without breaking eye contact, he stood up, left his half-finished drink on the table, and walked out of the bar, disappearing into the Parisian night. The rest of the trip, I was on edge. A few days later, while we were sightseeing, I saw him again. This time, it was broad daylight. He was standing across the street, blatantly taking photos of us. Not of the scenery. Of us. That's when I finally understood. This wasn't about burglars. It wasn't a coincidence. Whatever or whoever had been watching my family for over a decade had UN stopped just because we put up cameras. They followed us. They followed us across an ocean. I don't know who they are or what they want, but I know they're always there, and I have a terrible feeling that they always will be. Thanks for listening. If you have any similar stories, I'd be interested to hear them in the comments. And if you enjoyed this, please consider subscribing for more.